What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show bringing you all the action from the Premier League and SerieA, England and Italy. I am your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. Got home from the gym not too long ago, so my body is moving. I feel like I got some work done. My stomach does not look like I've done a lot of work, but that's the name of the game when we're getting old, right? You got to play catch up with your body. So
I'm not old at all. I don't know what you really mean by that, if I'm being honest. Coldest day of the year.
Oh my God,
at least
dude,
for
it's so
us,
cold.
which is definitely something as I get older, I start to feel more and more. It's getting colder in Europe as well, but some things are heating up, Dom.
I like it. I like the segue.
You like that?
Normally, I'll pass the segue torch this episode. I'll give you that.
Yeah, torches are hot too. We got to start with, I think, the biggest news of the day, and probably one of the biggest firings of the season, maybe the biggest. Jose Mourinho out as Roma manager. Daniele De Rossi is going to take over on an interim basis. He's going to finish out the season with Rome. And I think part of this is Italy has a rule about taking other managers during the season. It gets a little complicated. For Jose Mourinho, it's interesting because we actually talked about this last week. We talked about how Sarri has been able to beat Roma in a lot of these derbies, and that's a great win for Sarri. It's a great feather in his cap. But I think for Mourinho, it brings up a lot of questions about what is he as a manager now. I was reading today. If you look at the big games that Roma has played against essentially, the top 5, top 6 teams in SerieA, he's won 4 out of 29 in his time at Roma.
Not good.
It's just not good enough at all, especially for a team that wants to be competing, in the Champions League, at the very least being back in the Champions League. And so it kind of ends in some ways unceremoniously. And, after a loss to Milan over the weekend, and, in one of the articles, said the owners were disappointed by the club's results this season. They're also tired of his attitude. They're not happy that he constantly created controversy, blamed referees, and deflected blame. They're specifically disturbed by the aftermath of the Europa League final against Sevilla, as Mourinho verbally attacked referee Anthony Taylor, and there were accusations that the club hadn't backed him in the act of criticizing officiating. So, he didn't feel supported by, some of the aftermath of that. And the club didn't like that he created a lot of the aftermath, initially. So a lot to dissect there.
I mean, I feel like Mourinho is still kind of riding the success he had, 2010 and before. I do think that, once he went to Real Madrid after the treble-winning season at Inter, correct? Yeah, so
yes.
He's kind of still riding the coattails of, hey, I had this, extremely successful time at Chelsea, where I kind of made my name, and was touted as the special one of the greatest managers at the time, type deal. It gets me this move to Inter. In 2 seasons, I bring them to a treble. And because of that success, I go to the biggest, most successful club in the world and win more trophies. But I'm kind of carried on the back of, some incredible, one-of-a-kind talents. You're talking about a team that had Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká, Ozil, Xabi Alonso, Benzema, Bale. You're talking all of these players. You can name players for days that were on that team. And then once that period of his career ends and he starts moving to other teams, he wins a trophy here or there, but now there's questions that start to be asked about him. There's a little bit of doubt. He's not getting the results that you expect from a Mourinho team. And now, I mean, you're looking at his career in Italy, and you know, when you bring up a couple stats, like he's never beat Stefano Pioli in a match. And I'm talking like this is like 13 games or something between the two of them. And I'm not sure if that goes just in Pioli's career at Milan. It could also be when he was coaching another team. Regardless, if it's that, then that's even worse. You know what I mean? But we're also talking about a lackluster Milan, you know, not in the recent past like 3 seasons, but like before that. You know, if you're talking 14 games, you're going back in time a little bit where he's in charge of some pretty subpar teams and they're still not getting the job done. I don't know if we can still consider him the special one. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a chunk of his career where he's incredible. But for the greatest managers, you know, when we talk in Ancelotti, when we talk in Alex Ferguson, when we talk even Zinedine Zidane and you know, some of these other guys, it's not just a small chunk, it's career long. I mean, you make these big influential changes and no matter where you go, you see success. Is he really that special? I mean, like you said, the antics are crazy. You know, he's constantly deflecting blame. He's never accountable for anything. He thinks that his teams are still up there. His team's in ninth, or not ninth place, but they're getting close, you know? And you know, this is a team from the makeup at the beginning of the season we kind of had high hopes for. At least I did. You know, I think I had them in my top 4. So, like I said, that they were going to overachieve. They were going to surprise people. And it just hasn't been the case. You saw it this weekend against Milan. They were lackluster. Just let Milan run all over them. I think it's a very deserving sacking, to be honest. I mean, I don't know what this means for Roma, because normally when you start seeing clubs bring in former players, these emotional managers, it's not indicative of good times ahead. You know, I've seen it personally. I've lived through it. You're kind of seeing it somewhat at Manchester United. And you know, you talk about some other clubs, when you see that happen, it's like, oh, are they really serious now? You know, they're trying to get the fans back on their side.
It's interesting you bring up Manchester United, because I was listening to Nikki Bandini, who does a lot of coverage for SerieA, especially for The Guardian, and she likened Daniele De Rossi to Solskjaer at Manchester United, kind of just bringing in someone with some good vibes with the fans, you know, and trying to reset the culture a little bit. Yeah, for Mourinho, I think it's interesting too, because you know, part of his whole ethos and what he brought as a manager was he had this like kind of psychological edge that he could convince players, especially the best paid players in the world, that everyone hated them and was against them, and that it was us against them. And I think he's just kind of lost that edge a little bit. I think he's just lost that voice. And I don't think he deserves to be in that. I think he was already out of that elite manager bracket. I think he's been out of that for a while now, but I think this is confirmation that maybe even in some of the bigger leagues, I don't know if he just has the juice anymore. Now, I will say he did win a Conference League trophy with Roma, which is no small thing. Roma's not a club that have won a ton of trophies in their history.
It takes them to Europa League final the following year.
They're a penalty shootout away from Europa League finals, and they're in the Champions League this year if that happens. And I think based on the way that they played in that Europa League final, listen, that's not the way it works, obviously, but I thought they played well enough to win that game. I didn't think that they were outclassed by any means, but that's the way it works. You know, you have small margins, and those are big twists of fate. So yeah, I don't know what's next for him. I don't know if there is anything next for him. He clearly, I think, still has the ambition to coach more. I don't know if he's going to be a big payout guy to one of these Middle Eastern leagues or something. You know, he goes to Saudi Arabia. Who knows? It seems like a lot of players are leaving Saudi Arabia, so it would be strange for him maybe to be pushing the exodus back the other way. But yeah, it's kind of it's a little bit sad, because I think he was just one of the main characters of the sport for 15 years, and it just seems like it's fallen off now. I will say one thing that I really loved is I saw a completely unrelated like TikTok reel. You know how they do those highlight reels and stuff, like fan cam kind of thing, and it had nothing to do with him, but it was like his reactions over the years, and I will say I would love to sit down one day and do a top 10 of his most clippable moments, because he has so many. Like, he's one of the few managers I think you could really actually do that with, because it didn't even include his very famous one when he was Inter manager, when he does the laps around the Camp Nou, and that's apparently how Real Madrid knew that was their guy, right? Because he's celebrating so excitedly at Barcelona's demise. You have the Ear Cup at Juventus when they had that comeback. Like, he has so many. The knee slide in the Gucci suit. Like, it's
Oh my God, man! And it used to grab headlines, especially in England, because in England they want you to be a little more reserved, a little more proper. You're not.
They love that shit.
Not supposed to show that emotion. But yeah,
they ate him up.
They ate him up, and the papers, of rival teams did not like it. But
no.
Yeah, it was a very iconic time for him. So like everybody still has that memory. But we've talked about this with other subjects too. But now you're having the next generation of football fans coming up, right? Kids that were born around the time that Mourinho was having this success. So they may not remember it as much. But these kids are getting to an age where they're starting to put their opinions online through social media. And all they know is this Mourinho guy that is a meme, right? They didn't see the 2010 trouble. They didn't see the Chelsea team pre-2010. And that's kind of, I think that you're going to see a discrepancy in how people talk about him. But these videos, they're hilarious. They're bringing back memories, bringing back all of these things that he said or done. I mean, he put together some good teams. There's always been some Mourinho ball, controversy, like he parks the bus a little too much and things like that. But there's other successful managers that have the same kind of similar tactic and don't see half as much criticism as he does. I think the personality just brings it in. As for De Rossi, I don't know how this is going to go, dude. The last time he managed was almost a year ago. He was at Spal.
He was at Spal, that's right.
His record was 3 wins, 6 draws, 8 losses. They finished second to last in Serie B. Now, granted, he was only there for 17 games, but that's about half the season. They brought him in trying to help stay out of relegation and stay alive in Serie B. Could not do it. Now, granted, Spal is a piss-poor team, but concerning. It's a little concerning.
I will say, I forgot he played for Boca Juniors. I forgot about that final stage.
It's one of those trivia knowledge pieces that you should know about, right? Because it's so funny. Whenever you say the name Daniele De Rossi, you just instantly think Roma, right? You think of 2 things: low socks with the tackle tattoo, and Roma. And yeah, he went to Boca Juniors for a little bit. That's so weird, right? So weird.
I forgot he was the one. I'm clearly very obviously looking at De Rossi's Wikipedia page. I shouldn't even say I forgot. I don't even think I remembered that he was the one. This obviously sticks out in my mind as obviously an American, but Brian McBride gets just destroyed in that Italy game and his face gets split open. That was De Rossi that did that. That elbows him and it gets red carded. And McBride has that just blood gushing down, breaks his nose, and has to get stitched up. Guy does not care.
He was an enforcer. For
all, he had an interesting career. All things considered.
Guy won he won a World Cup with Italy.
He was on the 06 World Cup team, and
he
was at the 2010 World Cup. Is at the 2012 Euros.
He's got a World Cup. He's got 2 Italian Cups. He's got an Italian Super Coppa. He's a European under-21 champion.
Yeah.
And let's see. Does he have anything else in his trophy cabinet? I cannot see. He's an Argentinian champion. He won the league with Boca Juniors in 2020.
Division,
yeah. So that's interesting. But
as a manager, it
not as this it gives me, you mentioned Manchester United with the Solskjaer vibes. I can name 3 coaches off the top of my head that I've dealt with over the course of me being a Milan fan that it reminds me of. It reminds me of the Filippo Inzaghi appointment. It reminds me of the Clarence Seedorf appointment. It reminds me of the Gennaro Gattuso assignment. Granted, Gattuso had the most successful one out of all of them, but it was still peak in the Banter era when he came in. And like, it's just, you bring these managers in that like maybe have managed somewhere. Like De Rossi has some experience. He was one of the technical coaches for the Italian national team, and then takes over Spal, and now Roma just pulls him in. The manager pool must have been really, really small if they're like, that's our guy. I mean, they don't really have any money, do they?
Well, that's part of the money that they can't really spend on transfers. Part of it too is, like I said, in Italy, you can't take managers from other teams mid-season. I don't think so. Yeah, this is like a stopgap. Just get them into the summer and then fine. They're also thinking, I think there's also going to be a shakeup with like their sporting director, and they probably want their next sporting director to be the person who chooses the next coach, the next manager. So
how long has that guy been in charge? Because Moncada used to be technical director, right? Or
yeah, I think it's only been maybe a year or two. I want to say last year might have been his first year, but I think there might. That's just what I've read, is that there might be a shakeup elsewhere, and that might also be part of their reasoning is they want the next guy to be able to pick the next guy. But
also doesn't help Dybala being injured all the time too, right? You spend all the money to bring him in,
obviously not helped Roma here, but they've also like part of it too is like over the last few years they just have not achieved as high as they want. They've been 6th place 2 years in a row, and this year they're sort of languishing mid-table.
When Gianluca Mancini is your captain, I think it's time to worry. So,
guy's a psycho. Elsewhere, Dom, podcast legend, one of our true favorites.
Yes,
Davide Nicola, back in. It's not the hottest seat. He's been in a tougher situation. He's faced harder battles and bigger challenges. But he is back. We have him to root for yet again. He's taking over Empoli. Empoli, of course, have had a tough season, right? But they're not sitting bottom of the table like Salernitana was a few years ago when Nicola took over and saw them to safety. They're just going to roll the dice. I don't think it's a bad idea. Listen, if I'm a team in Italy and I'm in the relegation zone and I want to make a change and Davide Nicola is out there, that is the guy that I'm calling. I think he's the first man that I'm calling, who's a realistic option for you, who can get you out of trouble for whatever reason. I don't quite understand it. He just has a knack of getting teams out of the relegation zone by the end of the year. And they're 5 points off Cagliari right now. Hellas Verona have made a pretty good turnaround. They were sitting bottom of the table for a good chunk of the season. We'll see if Empoli can make up that ground, but it's going to be fun to root for Nicola again.
Yeah, I mean, he's put in the work. He's proven that he can save a team from relegation. So, let's see if they can do it. I mean, Empoli's spot in the table right now, 2 points behind Lecce. Wait, is that? No, sorry, that's the. Never mind. I'm looking at the wrong table, I think. Right?
Yeah, Empoli is
that's
4 points behind Hellas Verona.
What is this table I'm looking at right now? What the hell is this?
Are you looking at a forum table?
No, I think it's the squad average age. What the hell is this table I'm looking at right now? This is
I can't figure out a table. It's crazy.
No, I don't understand why on transfer markets. Listen, I'm just gonna say this right now. I don't care what they think of us in the podcast after this, but I click on the league to go to like the competition, right? You would expect on the homepage of the league to have the actual table, right? So when I go and I look at what should be the actual table, it's not it. It's not. I should have realized this when I saw Napoli third, but like they've got the average age.
Tom, it's transfer market. That's their entire point of their website, is that they track transfers, and part of that is age. Don,
that may be a dumb.
I'm looking at the same table you're looking at. It's pretty clear. It's pretty clear.
I'm
Right
just
next to it
I'm
is
just an idiot.
foreigners. Right next to it is foreigners, then market value, then total
Yeah,
market
I
value.
didn't.
This
I
might
wasn't
just-
paying attention. That's a L on me. But whatever.
That's okay.
Let me
You know, we still appreciate you.
let me go back to what I was saying. Oh my goodness, this is terrible. Anyway, yeah, like you said, they're 4 points behind Hellas. Okay, yeah, they have a little bit of they have some work they need to do. This is going to be a tough one for him, but if there's anybody you're gonna pull in to do that, it's him.
He had a bigger gap with Salernitana. He'll make it up.
Yeah,
I believe
it's possible.
Meanwhile, we have the Super Coppa going on, not in Italy, in Saudi Arabia. I just needed to mention this because Maurizio.
Oh my god, it's so
just speaking truth to power here. He said, "Everyone knows what I think, that this tournament is about. It's about anything other than sport. You take the money and run. We take all that we can in this short-sighted manner. We go around the world begging for money." With all the problems that are with crowded fixture lists, we then also set up a 4-team Super Cup. Modern football is this type of evolution that I'm glad to be old-fashioned. Maurizio, sorry, Lazio manager. Just it's hard to disagree with him. You know, I do think it's ridiculous that we're.
I mean, Spain did the same thing, right?
They've been doing it for a few years now too. They've been going to Saudi Arabia for the Super Coppa.
This is so dumb, dude. Like, why? I don't get
money.
it.
It's money. The league is getting 30 million for it. That's why.
But like, I'm pretty sure you were just about to say, right? Like, you get these guys on a plane in their already busy schedule. Now they have to fit in a travel day and go play in a different country in a different time zone, all for people's entertainment because they can pay them to come play here or play there. It's so crazy. Like,
that's how money works. Yeah. That is
thanks, man. Appreciate that. It's just so absurd to me that that's the case. Like, these guys aren't actual fans of the teams. Like, they're going because you're bringing some names and some quote unquote more popular name teams to the country. I mean, you know, you're talking about, like, I'm gonna talk about the El Clasico that was played there, the Spanish Super Cup. And they had a moment of silence, and the whole crowd just is going off.
Yeah.
Like I saw some things, you know, some people said, you know, there were cultural differences or this or that. Like, I don't know what's the truth, but like, it feels, it's the same conversation we had when all the players were going to the Saudi Super League, right? It's like, it's all done for the money. There doesn't seem to be any type of passion behind it. And I don't think it's good for the game. I mean, the putting the travel and the extra game into the season in a different country, in a different time zone, you got to travel there and back. So that's added into the schedule. I don't know. It annoys me.
I'll say this too. You know, it's interesting because quite a few of the players now are working their way back to Europe. Maybe one of the biggest faces, or at least the guy I think they got the most flack, Jordan Henderson, found a way to cancel his contract with Al Ettifaq and is now seemingly heading to Ajax, who are obviously having a really tough year in the Eredivisie. But quite a few players, I think, that made the switch to the Saudi League are now discovering that it actually kind of sucked and maybe the money wasn't worth it. So we'll keep that. I just thought it was interesting to hear.
Is Ronaldo going to take credit for that too?
Probably not.
You know, he's talking about, oh, I'm the one that built this. Everybody came over because I came here, and you know, I was tasked with one goal, and that's making this league great. And look what happened, and now look what's happening. Is he going to take credit for that part?
Probably not. I think he's just going to take credit for the $200 million that he's getting a year, and then he doesn't have to step foot in the United States and be locked up for the rest of his life. I think that's what he's most interested in. Let's look at towards England. Some news here. Kevin De Bruyne, Tom, is back. We've been talking about his return. And just really, boy, did he just announce it. Boy, did he make everyone feel it. He's really the catalyst that propelled City to beat Newcastle 3-2. great game, a lot of great goals. Trying to corral my cat who's just being an absolute psycho, so bear with me. But man, he scares me. He's one of the best players in the world, and makes an impact on a team like very few players can. And
Nuts.
we talked about some of the struggles that City have had this year, and that they haven't quite looked at their top form. And part of that has been because De Bruyne hasn't been healthy. Part of that is because Haaland hasn't been healthy. Well, guess what? One of those guys is back. I will say Ederson goes out of this game injured. I haven't been able to find an update on him, and if he's facing any kind of like long time out, that could be meaningful. Ederson is a very impactful keeper, especially to the way that they build up from the back. And so if he's missing any amount of time, that could be a genuine concern. But De Bruyne, it just shows exactly what they've been missing, which is, I think, that final delivery that they have lots of great players, but just none of them can do it quite like he can.
I mean, the guy came on in the 69th minute and got a goal and an assist. That's against a tough team too. I mean, it just speaks volumes to just the type of player he is, right? And coming back off injury, you're tasked with 20 minutes of game time, goal and an assist.
Yeah, he had made his return in the FA Cup and looked good, but it was the FA Cup. I forget, they played someone pretty low down the tier.
It took him 5 minutes to score. He was in the game for 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's a special player, and so that's going to obviously be a storyline to follow for the rest of the year. And when we talk about the title race and things like that, I think people have maybe not written off, but I think have kind of lost sight of City and the fact that they do this, right? We know what they do at this point. And it was just in the show knows, we talk about, you get to February, March, and City turn on a different gear. Other big news coming out of England: Everton and Nottingham Forest charged with sustainability failings. Everton have already been punished so far this year. They have that 10-point deduction, which they're appealing. But this is for this past year. I think what confuses people is these run on 3-year cycles. So they're still, their most recent one still includes the 3 years prior or 2 years prior. Essentially, the same issues that got them the 10-point deduction are still there, because they're still over. You're allowed to lose, I think it's 105 million over 3 years, and they are 19.5 million over that because of stadium funding and wages. Nottingham Forest, I think there's an issue with when they're arguing that Brennan Johnson was agreed to be sold before a certain date, and that should count, and that they shouldn't actually have lost any money. Who knows? There's going to be an appeal process for this stuff. Important to remember, these teams have accepted the ruling, but they're appealing to try and get a lower deduction or fine or whatever it is. So I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we do see some points deductions for both of them. I doubt it'll be at the same size that Everton had, because even their 10.1 seems like it might get reduced, but we don't know when that'll be resolved either. So this adds a little bit of chaos into the relegation battle in the Premier League.
We're probably going to see more of the protest actions in the crowds from the fans as well. Probably you'll probably see those. What did it say? It was like a picture of the Premier League. They were the purple ones that the Everton fans were using at the beginning of the season. Yeah. But wait, so isn't Everton's whole angle on this whole thing the stadium funding? Aren't they trying to use that as necessary funds where they're not actually operating at a loss, and they're trying to work the books so that 19 is actually taken off of the 105?
Part of it still too is their wages were super high. They had still one of the highest wage bills, so that all matters too. But yes, they were under the impression, because they all said it all gets complicated. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on this, but Usmanov, who was a business partner with Farhad Mashiri, who's the principal owner of Everton, was supposed to be providing some of the funding, but he got caught up in the same thing with the war in Ukraine, propagated by Russia, right? That he had assets frozen because he's no longer available to be a sugar daddy for them. And so that deal went through. So I think some of the money, but they were also contending too that during COVID, they have different rules about financial
Mhm.
fair play and sustainability and what was profit, what was loss. It's all going to get worked out by lawyers, at some stage. I think the biggest thing is people have been frustrated because Manchester City still have these like 115 charges or whatever hanging over
Yeah.
their head. Part of that is because those are more complex and that they denied those charges, and there's 115 of them, and what they're being accused of is lying and cooking books, and
It's a lot harder to prove that.
That's different than someone looking at a spreadsheet and be like, "Hey, uh, this is bad," and someone's like, "It is. We're sorry. Don't kill us." Like that's kind of the difference there. So,
Oh
yeah,
man, if anybody does want a really good one, the Athletics Football Pod did a really good episode on that. They go deep dive into the Everton situation, and then they also talk about the City situation a lot better than either of us can articulate ourselves, because I remember certain things, but not a lot. Matt basically expounded on what he's aware of. So yeah, check that out too. Shout out to them.
yeah. So keep an eye on that. It does matter because obviously, to both of those teams, Everton has already had to kind of dramatically come back from their point deduction, and they're just a point above.
Yeah.
Luton have a game in hand, and Nottingham Forest, if they were to face any kind of like substantial point deduction, would also probably find themselves in the relegation zone. So, if you're Burnley or Luton Town, you're kind of hoping that justice prevails here, right? That the Premier League panel still has time to do the right thing.
Luton's over here only a point behind Everton anyway, so it's kind of like, oh yeah, you know what, we were on your ass anyway.
Someone called Mike Pence. He still has the chance to do the right thing if he has the courage.
Oh man,
still has the chance to do the right thing.
That's interesting though, man. Yeah, I was curious if another point deduction was on its way, at least for Everton. But if that's imminent, not a good look. Not a good look at all.
Well, let's look at transfers, Dom, because we've had a few. It's not been a high action January though so far, which is fine. But we are halfway through the month. A name I haven't really thought about in a while, but a player who I liked, Jed Spence, who previously played at Nottingham Forest, went to Spurs. Never really found the action there. Antonio Conte was the manager and said pretty publicly that he was not interested in Jed Spence and that the club signed him. So not a great way to start your career, I would say. And him and Radu Dragusin essentially just switch addresses and places here. Dragusin coming from Genoa to Spurs, Jed Spence going on loan to Genoa from Spurs. Dragusin, though, is a permanent transfer.
That's a big move.
Yeah, he was linked with Bayern as well, but had already given his word to Spurs. We actually saw him make his debut already over the weekend in their 2-2 draw against United. Looking forward to see him progress. He's kind of a little bit of a hybrid center back, and now with Eric Dyer moving on to Bayern, at least on loan, we'll see what that becomes. But I can't believe that was a sentence that I just said. Dragusin interests me though. I think he's an interesting player, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he does there. Spurs are somehow the center of a lot of these transfers. Sergio Reguilon also on loan. He goes to Brentford. Brentford obviously really suffering from not having Rico Henry, and that's been a big part of their fall off. Outside of Ivan Toney and Brian Mbeumo being injured or / suspended. So yeah, I think Reguilon, another guy that had he had a really hot start in the Premier League with Spurs. Do you remember that? He was like a really hot prospect and was playing very well and just has not been able to recapture that.
Yeah, it's tough. In other news, probably the biggest news that's been out for a few days now. Jadon Sancho getting his move, heads to Dortmund. And on social media, you saw all of his old teammates and other, high-profile players, wishing him luck, saying, "I'm so happy for you, bro. I'm glad, to see you there, and congratulations on the transfer." Does this speak volumes about United and kind of how the professional community views that team, because they seem over the world for him and provided an impact off the bench right away?
Gets an assist, 20-something minutes in. It's unbelievable. By the way, he spent like 2.5 years in Manchester United. Really 2 because he barely played this year because they froze him out. It's 6 assists in that time. He is 1/6 in 39 minutes of action, 36 minutes of action.
How long has it been since he's played a game for United?
He played like very few early this year. He hasn't played in like months though.
Yeah, so he hasn't played in months for United. And they're just like, oh, he's not good enough. Like, this man was banned from practicing with the team for a while.
The last game he played 31 minutes on August 26th against Nottingham Forest.
He was given the Beckham treatment. The Beckham at Real Madrid was put through this.
Yeah. When I think of Jadon Sancho, my mind really goes. Right
you want to talk about top English right mids, of all time. The top 2 that come to my mind: David Beckham and Jadon Sancho. But listen,
I think of Joe Cole. I think of a young Theo Walcott.
Man, what a player!
Think of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. He played out on the
he did play out wide. I
Aaron Lennon.
I see. FIFA players right there. FIFA players know what we're talking about
when he couldn't afford Gareth Bale. That's who you bought.
Oh man. But no, I'm happy to see Jadon Sancho. Back at Dortmund. I think that move will do well for him.
Yeah, we'll
do you see him starting for the club eventually?
He could. I think they're looking for they've kind of had a really tough year, especially the Bundesliga. It's really between Leverkusen and Bayern, and we know the history of Bayer Leverkusen is to fail at some point. And I feel so bad for Xabi Alonso that at some point he's got to suffer a terrible loss. Speaking of Xabi Alonso, Dom, we're just doing this every week now because it's so much fun. And you do this to yourself.
Oh my God.
I mean, you're free one week to also do it to me again.
I gotta get you at one.
This week I loaded one up. I did just a full random one. Last week I did it strikers just because I think that's a little funnier. This is a good one. So we're gonna do in top 5. If you don't know the rules, you're locked into whatever position you put these guys in. You can't move them afterwards. At the end, we'll get your real ranking. But for the fun of it, your top 5. These are some big hitters, I got to say, and then one not so big hitter. I'm going to start you with Xabi Alonso. He's one of our.
Oh God!
Xabi Alonso, your top 5.
And you're not telling me the theme of these players.
It's completely random. Last week.
So I'm just ranking 5 players just across the entire history of football. Then
these are big guys. These are big guys.
Xabi Alonso. Oh man. 3.
That's actually, I think, a pretty fair spot to put him on this list. Sergio Aguero.
4.
Oh
no.
Okay.
I'm thinking that there's some better. When you said Xabi Alonso is a good place for that, I'm thinking there's some other hitters. All right, go ahead.
Edinson Cavani.
2.
Interesting. What do I do here? This is where it gets fun. Luis Figo.
Ooh. But he's got to go 1. He's got to go 1. I can't put him 5.
Well, here you go. Samuel Umtiti.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, easily 5 right there.
You played the game well.
Ooh, that's a solid. Yeah. You know what? I'm okay with Cavani being over Aguero. I am okay with that. I'm okay with Aguero being 4th on that list. Just because I'm thinking of just pure success. I mean, Xabi Alonso has so much success everywhere he's gone. What I think, just in general, I could probably switch Cavani and Xabi. out of that list. Yeah. I probably could do that. But like Cavani has a special place in my heart. You know, I've watched him since he played at Palermo. I mean, he was up in that Palermo team back then was just incredible players. And then, you know, going from there to Napoli, being a part of a Napoli team that if it wasn't for Juventus setting records, should have been top of the league, in my opinion. And then, you know, he was a baller at PSG. It just sucks that he had to play second fiddle to Ibra and kind of play on the left wing at times. But I mean, he's just a perfect number 9. I think that ends. I was a fan of Cavani for a long time, like through my teens. So like, I don't know, he has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I didn't know you had such romantic feelings by that.
Oh yeah,
that's good to know.
I'm a big fan of a Uruguayan striker.
I would go Figo, Aguero, Xabi, Cavani, Umtiti. That would be my.
Okay. Regardless, out of that list, Figo is definitely number 1.
Figo's great. Obviously, a lot of controversy. Speaking of another guy that has a Netflix documentary, one of the, I think, most reviled players, depending on who you ask. A big what if guy too, because those early 2000s, mid 2000s Portugal teams should have done a lot better. 04 Euros for sure, 06 World Cup potentially too. But you have the Battle of Nuremberg against the Netherlands, and they had some tough moments. But kind of a guy that maybe could have had more international success too, if you know things just kind of go a different way.
Who do you think is more reviled, Figo or Ronaldo Fenomeno? Because I mean that guy, he played for Milan and Inter. He played for Barca, Real.
What's strange about him is he did all that, and no one really has any ill will towards him, though. You know, because he was so great too.
Do you think it's like the international success too? So everybody just views him as like Jesus.
Yeah, he was just kind of like, I think his personality too. He was just kind of like an affable guy. Like he
always had a smile. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think people really have a lot of. I think part of it too is like his career kind of ended because of injury, pretty much. Like he had to kind of get phased out, and I think when that happens to a player too, it feels like I don't know, people are a little more forgiving. Yeah, it never really, despite the fact that he played for a lot of big rivals.
I think it was because he didn't jump from one right to the other. You know what I mean? It was like he went to one and then went back after playing for the team in Spain. Figo, I mean, he was the guy at Barca and kind of just like, oh, Galacticos being formed. Yeah. Here we go. Like, and he was incredible for him.
Unbelievable player. One of the best to ever do it.
Decent.
Let's look ahead to this weekend, just see what we got on offer. Arsenal Crystal Palace. Interesting. I'm interested. Crystal Palace have been a tough one lately. Bournemouth versus Liverpool. It's kind of your Premier League title race check-in there. Bournemouth have been playing very well. Dominic Solanke, just one of the top attackers all of a sudden, one of the top strikers.
Your boy, England. Right?
I like Solanke when he's at Liverpool. I'm happy to see him do well, genuinely. And I can't wait to see him bag up a race this weekend and just crush my dreams. That's going to be awesome. Roma get the opportunity to bounce back against Hellas Verona this weekend. They'll be Daniele De Rossi's first test as manager. No real big games this weekend, though, I would say, across all of our leagues here. Kind of this weekend is kind of like the weather. It's like, maybe do something else. Maybe find something else to do. I know next week too we have some of the domestic cups coming back again. We had the FA Cup. West Ham got knocked out of the FA Cup. So long, farewell. We barely knew ye. But we'll be back next week to wrap those games up. And if we got any big transfers between now and then, we'll be sure to hit on that. Dom, anything to say before we get out of here?
A couple SerieA transfers. Rade Krunic is out to Fenerbahce.
Rest in peace.
My guy, remember Hamed Traore?
Yes, I was going to mention this, but I didn't know.
He's in Napoli now.
You love him.
He's at Napoli. So, very, very tasty transfer right there. I mean, I've always liked him. Watching Sassuolo play Milan, I thought he was always a threat for them. Getting some Premier League experience with Bournemouth, probably did him well. So all the best to him from Napoli. They've got some work to do trying to get out of ninth. So maybe he can provide a little spark for them.
Yeah. How much RRA was interesting. Never really quite worked for Bournemouth, but Napoli searching for answers. I would
He
say.
knows the league, so
Yeah, that's a prerequisite right there. We'll see you next time, breaking down those games and talking about the future and ranking a list of players in a very difficult manner.
man.
See you next time.